In the increasingly huge and depressing wasteland that has become Western entertainment, there are very few names left that instantly catch my attention when they're working on a new project. And among the screenwriters, Martin McDonagh is definitely in the top tier. His first three movies are some of the most brilliant of the last 15 years. Plus, it was announced quite a long time ago that the new one would see the reunion of Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson, who were the protagonists of In Bruges, the masterful film debut of McDonagh. So the hype for this movie was real, but didn't manage to live up to the expectations. The Banshees of Inisherin is probably the most personal of Martin McDonagh movies. Set in 1923, on a small island right off the coast of Ireland, is the story of two lifelong friends, Patrick and Colm. The latter one day decides out of the blue that he doesn't want to hang out with the first anymore. Patrick is a simple and kind man who feels hurt by the sudden change of heart of his best friend. He doesn't understand why, and doesn't want to give up on a friendship that is fulfilling his life. On the other hand, Colm is very firm in his choice, and has no intention to change his mind. The reason why he doesn't want to spend more time with Patrick is that he wants to focus on his music, so that he can compose something that will survive forever. What seemed to be a petty argument between two stubborn men turns out to be an actual clash of different ideologies. On one side, Patrick, who thinks that the most important thing in life is to be kind to other people, and on the other, Colm, who wants to leave a sign in history, even if that means being unkind to the people around him. In the middle, there are the other villagers, who witness to an increasingly grotesque series of clashes between the two stubborn men. But no one, including Patrick's sister, seemed to be able to stop the conflict. The simple and bizarre story of the two old friends is obviously a metaphor of the clash between the two different factions which were fighting in the Irish Civil War at the time, and the writing is extremely balanced in showing that both sides had their own reasons, even if at first sight you may think that only one of the two is being wronged. Obviously Patrick, with his gentle nature, is the easiest character to side with, but as the story progresses, it is clear that behind Colm's decision there wasn't any intention to hurt his old friend, but only the desire to change his life and leave behind something meaningful for everyone. As always in McDonagh's movies, the writing is superb. The story, in this case, is overall more dramatic in tone compared to his previous works, but the dark humor he is famous for is still there and works magic in the characterization of the small community of the island. One thing that is worth noting is that the Irish accent of the characters adds to the whole rhythm of the narration and builds a unique atmosphere. The way they talk to each other tells a story on its own, a story of stubborn people who don't speak much, but when they do, they go straight to the point.
Just tell me what I've done to you.
Well, you didn't do anything to me. I just don't like you no more.
Every sentence is said like the speaker is trying to have the last word in an argument, even if they're not arguing. On the other hand, the way they react to everything reveals the character of a community toughened by hardships. Nothing surprises much. Nothing is a big deal really, because everyone have definitely seen worse. Like I said, the story is bizarre and sometimes grotesque, but McDonagh was very careful not to go over the top in this film. The conflict between the two friends could follow the path of other movies and develop in a comic escalation of pranks, a bit like The War of the Roses. But it is clear in this case the priority was to keep a more sober approach, to give the audience a clearer sense of the pain both protagonists are feeling throughout the situation. The story and the characters of this movie reminded me of classic novels or novellas from late 1800, early 1900. Something pretty rare these days. This feeling is supported by some gorgeous visuals in this film. Martin McDonagh is one of the few proper auteurs around, not just a brilliant writer but also a director with a vision and an extraordinary sense of aesthetic. The background for the struggles of Patrick and Colm is a beautiful green island, where the people seem to be just guests. In fact, the human presence is limited to a few small houses, some fences and chariots. Everything else in that place is just endless green meadows, sheep, and cliffs that dive into the ocean. Throughout the movie, there is a constant visual contrast between the majestic beauty of pristine nature and the squalid misery of the human settlement. It is worth noting the excellent job of production design in building extremely believable environments. All the houses and the pub in the village feel authentic and lived. All the details in the constructions and the props don't just recreate the feeling of an early 1900 rural space, but everything tells the story of the struggle and the monotony of the villagers' lives. There is nothing fancy about them. They are just people surviving the best way they can in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by a wild nature that could clearly wipe them out in the blink of an eye. The contrast between nature and urban environment mirrors the clash between the two characters' ideologies, reinforcing the duality at the core of the whole film. Brendan Gleeson has become a master of playing grumpy old bastards, and delivers once again a great performance, but Colin Farrell, as Patrick, is outstanding. It might be an unpopular opinion, but I've always been a huge fan of his work. Throughout his career, he has shown an extremely wide range, and in 2022 alone, this is his third role that managed to surprise me, after the Penguin in the extremely overrated The Batman, and Harry Drax in the limited series The North Water. The rest of the cast does an excellent job giving life to the bizarre community of the island, and Kerry Condon is perfect in the role of Patrick's sister Chauvin. Even though I've been praising this movie for many valid reasons, I have to point out that overall, the allegory created by McDonagh is nothing mind-blowing. It can be considered sophisticated compared to the average garbage that gets produced nowadays, but it is definitely the simplest work of the Irish director. All his previous movies had a complexity and an explosive display of creativity that here are unfortunately absent. This story is quite linear, and there aren't any odd twists. Furthermore, the whole secondary story of Dominic and Chauvin made little to no sense to me, and I didn't really find it of any interest. So as good as it is, The Banshees of Inisherin is definitely my least favorite movie in McDonagh's filmography, but it is definitely a really good cinematic experience you should give a shot to, and like my friend Rob said, at least it's better than Shang-Chi.